On 3rd March 1924, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk officially abolishes the caliphate.
खिलाफत कोई दीनी इस्तिलाह नहीं, ये लफ्ज़ तो असल में अरबी ज़ुबान का एक आम लफ्ज़ है।
खिलाफत असल में अल्लाह ताला की नियाबत है, वाइसरीजेंसी, सबसे ज्यादा आदिलाना निज़ाम जिसमें इंसानों को उनके हुकूक सही तौर पर मिले, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ इस्लाम।
10 years of मदीना and 30 years of खिलाफत राशिदा, ये मॉडल है हमारा। इसके बाद जो कुछ हुआ वो तो फिर अरब इंपीरियलिज्म। आज जो है आप इसको वोट के जरिए से तय करेंगे। ये कोई शख्स जो है वो किसी और खानदान की बुनियाद पर क्लेम करने वाला नहीं आएगा।
57 independent Muslim majority states that may be classified as Marxist, liberal, secular. But is there one which can be termed as being purely Islamic? 1.5 billion people who proclaim themselves to be proud nationalists, but often criticized for not identifying themselves with the Ummah. Immense wealth, but little authoritative status in the affairs of the world. This is the state of Sharia, and I am Uwais Mangalwala. The concluding era of Khilafat reminds us of a few men. What they did shaped the world in the 20th century and even affects us to this day.
General Allenby entered Jerusalem on December 11th.
Towards the end of the Khilafat, the commander-in-chief of the British forces was Edmund Allenby. Often referred to as the Bloody Bull, Allenby led the forces that occupied Jerusalem in 1970. 6 years later, the Khilafat was torn apart and Turkey was completely westernized when Ataturk banned all that which he considered Islamic symbolism, including the hijab and the beard. With the Khilafat intact and powerful, none of this would have been possible. Allenby is alleged to have declared this when he entered Jerusalem. The Crusades have ended today. What he meant is easy to comprehend. It was not secularism that had conquered Jerusalem. It was religion. On my computer screen, I have the famous Balfour Declaration letter which was sent by the British Foreign Office to Lord Rothschild, who is a member of the Zionist Federation. The letter clearly indicates full support from the British government for the establishment of a national home for Jews in the Palestine area. After the end of the Khilafat, there were many who wanted the revival of an Islamic system. In the subcontinent, Maulana Maududi and Muhammad Iqbal were rallying for this cause, and in Egypt, it was Hassan al-Banna. In the year 1928, Hassan al-Banna founded the Muslim Brotherhood with a stated goal to make Quran and Sunnah the sole reference point for the life of the Muslim individual, family, community and state. This was the birth of the Islamist ideology in an organized form.
An Islamist will insist that Islam is not a religion, it's a political ideology on par or better than communism and capitalism. He will insist that to call Islam a religion is degrading Islam, whereas in fact, that's the Islamist position. The position in the Quran is that Islam is referred to as a deen in Arabic, as is Christianity and Judaism. The word ideology doesn't even exist in the Arabic language. So to say Islam is a political ideology with all of the implications of that it must dominate all spheres of life, is misleading.
It gives you a political concept, it gives you economic concept, it gives you right down to your personal level, how you should lead a life, how you should treat the people around you, and how you should live in a community, even to the level of how you should form cities and civilizations, and right up to the level of forming a global state. If you try to bring down Muslim ideology within the poles of East and the West, then you'll have a confusion. You'll have to understand Islam as a standalone, independent concept and code of life, which has its own solutions to the problems humanity faces today.
खिलाफत राशिदा तो खत्म हो गई थी, लेकिन मुसलमान हुकूमत तो दुनिया में रही है ना, कवानीन तो वहां इस्लामी थे, और ये सारा मामला जो है चलता रहा 1000 बरस तक, 1000 बरस तक चला है, और दुनिया के वसी तरीन तकबे पर चला है। उसके बाद कॉलोनियलिज्म आ गया। अब जाहिर बात है कि उन्होंने अपने कवानीन नाफिज करने शुरू कर दी। अब इस्लाम सुकड़ कर सिर्फ मजहब रह गया। दे अलाउड यू टू प्रे, आप रोजा रखे, वो नहीं रोकते थे, ठीक है, आप जो हज पे जाएं कोई नहीं रोकता था। मजहब तो रह गया, दीन इस्लाम कहीं नहीं रहा। अब जब पिछली सदी के वस्त में कॉलोनियलिज्म जो है खत्म हुआ, तो जैसे कोई आदमी बेहोशी से होश में आता तो हमें याद आया कि हमारा अपना एक निजाम होता था, हमारे कवानीन होते थे. Why not re-implement them?
Islamists will insist that the Sharia, which is a religious code, that his interpretation of Sharia must be synchronized with state legislation, i.e. that the legal and the illegal must be the same as the halal and haram. Again, that's an entirely modern idea, influenced by modern political thought.
हाकमियत अल्लाह की, उस हाकिम के नुमाइंदे रसूल ने जो लाकर उसकी कमांडमेंट्स देनी है, उसको आपकी पाबंदी करनी है. अलबत्ता जहां कोई कमांडमेंट्स नहीं है, वहां आप म्यूचुअल कंसल्टेशन से मामला तय कर सकते हैं.
Science or politics does not have a morality of its own. You have to give it a morality. And where would you give it morality from if you separate religion from it? Because morality can only come from religion, from a divinely inspired doctrine, which tells you a difference between the concept of haram and halal, right and wrong. And there are hundreds of laws which we follow within our daily life and without any problem. So what's the problem in following some divine laws which regulate your spiritual doctrine, spiritual domain also?
Under the motto, Quran is our constitution, the Muslim Brotherhood produced many intellectuals. One of them was Sayyid Qutb. Under the motto, Quran is our constitution, the Muslim Brotherhood produced many intellectuals. One of them was Sayyid Qutb. It is difficult to find Qutb's writings such as Milestones today, in which he fiercely condemns socialism, nationalism and liberal democracy, calling them evil and corrupt, and advocates jihad against them. Many subscribe to Qutb's views. Dwelling in every corner of the world, some derived a message of peace from his writings, and others had a drastically different interpretation, including Osama bin Laden. Osama's right-hand man, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri, also started his journey towards jihad from the Muslim Brotherhood.
إن كلاب أفغانستان لم تشبع بعد من لحوم الأمريكان، وأتحداك لو كنت رجلا أن ترسل الجيش الأمريكي كله لباكستان ولمناطق القبائل لينتهي بعون الله لجهنم.
As there were men who promoted Islamism, there are those who denounce it.
I was in Egypt, where I was arrested, taken to their torture facilities and then convicted to 5 years in prison for being a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir. But due to my studies in prison and due to my discussions with other former Islamists and former jihadists and my own studies, I'd learned Arabic and I'd studied classical Islam from its original sources, I decided eventually that I could no longer maintain the lie of Islamism that contradicted my understanding of traditional Islam as I had come to know it. And so I unilaterally announced my resignation from the leadership of Hizb ut-Tahrir, and I also renounced my adherence to the Islamist ideology.
Majid Nawaz was among the founders of Hizb ut-Tahrir in Pakistan and Denmark. Today, he is the director of the UK-based Quilliam Foundation, which aims to promote plurality and counter extremism. Many of Quilliam's projects are funded by the British government and even the United Nations. And this is why his critics say that he is supporting the Western agenda.
And the people...
Majid was on a trip to Pakistan to propagate his ideas when I met him in Karachi.
Islam is not an official state ideology that is forced onto people, but rather it's a religion that people adhere to voluntarily. I'm saying that historically, this has always been the case for Muslims, that we never had a clergy, and Islam was not forced onto people. Even Imam Malik himself, the founder of the Maliki school, was asked to take the Maliki school of thought and make it the state religion. He refused. And I'm saying that, of course, it's entirely a modern phenomenon. These calls for taking the power of a state to force religion onto people, its origins are in Christianity, where they did have a clergy and where they did want to force one religion over society.
Founded in Jerusalem in 1953, Hizb ut-Tahrir is a popular Islamist organization. Its constitution lays down specific rules and regulations to create a caliphate